The morning sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the familiar streets of Marcus Wright's neighborhood. Each step he took reverberated with the cadence of a life well lived, but not without its struggles. As he walked, the rhythmic sound of his polished shoes against the cracked pavement matched the pulse of the vibrant community that surrounded him. It was a patchwork of colorful homes and bustling shops, a place where the laughter of children mingled with the sounds of street vendors selling fresh produce and homemade treats. The air was alive with the aromas of spices wafting from a nearby Caribbean restaurant and the faint sweetness of blooming jasmine. At first glance, Marcus appeared at ease, a confident man in his 40s with an air of self-assuredness that came from years of hard work and dedication. He had built a successful life for himself as a tech entrepreneur, and today, dressed in tailored chinos and a crisp button-up shirt, he exuded the quiet authority of someone who had carved out a niche in the world. But beneath the surface of his polished exterior lay a restlessness that had been growing for years, an unshakable feeling of disconnection from the very community he had once embraced. As he strolled past an old, neglected apartment complex, Marcus's eyes were drawn to its dilapidated charm. The building, once proud and stately, now bore the scars of time, its paint peeled, windows cracked, and vines crept up its walls like fingers grasping for the past. It stood in stark contrast to the surrounding vibrancy, a silent witness to the history that pulsed beneath the surface of the neighborhood. Something about it pulled at Marcus, an inexplicable draw that sent a ripple of curiosity through him. The building was adorned with a faded sign, partially obscured by overgrown weeds and tangled vines. The words, "The Green Lantern," were barely legible, but they sparked an ember of intrigue in Marcus's mind. He paused, captivated, as if the very air around him thickened with the weight of untold stories. Just then, a burst of laughter broke the silence, drawing his attention to two elderly women sitting on a weathered bench nearby. Their animated conversation wafted over to him, laced with nostalgia and a touch of sorrow. "Do you remember when the Green Lantern was the heart of this community?" one of the women exclaimed, her voice tinged with a blend of pride and longing. The other nodded, her eyes brightening with the memory. Oh, it was something special. Dances, poetry readings, community meetings. It brought everyone together. Marcus felt a strange connection to their words, a spark igniting within him. It was as if the mention of the Green Lantern resonated with a part of him he had long ignored. The apartment complex, with its crumbling facade, suddenly felt alive with possibility, a portal to a time he had never known but somehow sensed. The first woman sighed, her gaze drifting toward the building as if searching for something lost. Now look at it. Just a shell of what it used to be. No one cares anymore. Marcus stepped closer, drawn by their conversation. "Excuse me," he interjected, his voice steady but curious. "What was the Green Lantern?" Both women turned to him, surprised. The first woman, with her silver hair pulled back in a tight bun, squinted as if trying to place him. "Ah, it was a social club, a haven for the black community back in the day. They held dances and events to uplift our spirits." The second woman leaned in, her eyes twinkling with enthusiasm. "It was where we celebrated our culture, our stories. You wouldn't believe the talent we had. Musicians, writers, artists. It was a place of pride and joy." Marcus listened intently, his heart racing as the words washed over him. Each detail painted a picture of a vibrant community life that felt achingly familiar yet tantalizingly out of reach. The nostalgic glow of their memories ignited a curiosity that felt almost like a calling. "Why did it close down?" he asked, his mind racing with thoughts of the connections he had lost over the years. The first woman sighed deeply, a frown creasing her brow. "Time caught up with it, I suppose. Gentrification took hold, and the new folks don't care about our history. They see a crumbling building, not a legacy." Marcus felt the weight of her words. It wasn't just a building. It was a cornerstone of their community, a repository of stories waiting to be uncovered. He could sense the energy surrounding them, a blend of sorrow for what had been lost and hope for what could be resurrected. As the conversation dwindled, Marcus took a step back, still fixated on the building. The air was thick with a potent mix of history and the unspoken grief of forgotten dreams. A breeze rustled through the trees, carrying the faint scent of lilacs and something else, something electric, like the charge before a storm. In that moment, he felt a strange sense of purpose unfurl within him. The green lantern wasn't just a relic of the past. It could be a bridge to a future he hadn't yet imagined. The stories of the two women echoed in his mind, intertwining with his own longing for connection, for community, for belonging. With newfound determination, Marcus turned and walked away from the complex, but not without casting one last glance over his shoulder. He could almost hear the laughter, the music, the life that once filled its halls. He felt an inkling that perhaps it was time for him to reclaim that history and weave it into his own narrative. As he continued his walk through the neighborhood, the morning sun shifted, illuminating the path ahead. The streets bustled with life, yet his heart beat with a growing urgency, an unshakable sense that he was on the brink of uncovering something profound. Today would be different. Today, he would not merely observe from the sidelines, but rather step into the arena and confront the whispers of his past. The world around him pulsed with energy, and as he reached a corner cafe, he could hear the faint clink of coffee cups and the soft murmur of conversations. For the first time in years, he felt a stirring in his soul, an awakening to a possibility he had long since buried. He would return to the green lantern, and in doing so, he would begin to stitch together the fabric of his own identity, one thread at a time. The scene faded as he moved on, the rich tapestry of the neighborhood weaving itself into a new narrative, where the past and future could collide in a breathtaking display of resilience and hope. Little did Marcus know, this was only the beginning of his journey, a journey that would unravel the stories locked away in the walls of the green lantern and reshape the path he had chosen for himself. The day had just begun, and the whispers of history beckoned him forward. Marcus Wright had always been driven by a sense of purpose, instilled in him at a young age by his mother, Clara. A single parent who had to navigate life's challenges with grace and grit, she was the bedrock of his formative years. Growing up in a small, predominantly black neighborhood, Marcus watched her work tirelessly to provide for their family. Clara was a nurse, often pulling double shifts at the local hospital, and her unwavering determination set the standard for the kind of man Marcus aspired to be. She taught him the value of hard work, compassion, and the importance of community, a lesson that resonated deeply within him. From the outside, Marcus's life seemed enviable. He excelled academically, earning a scholarship to a prestigious university where he studied computer science. His ambition was matched only by his skill, and he quickly ascended in the tech world, founding a startup that revolutionized digital security. But beneath the sheen of success lay a turbulent undercurrent, a battle with the remnants of his past that would shape the man he was becoming. Marcus enlisted in the Army shortly after graduation, seeking both a sense of duty and an escape from the weight of expectation that accompanied his burgeoning career. The military was a world apart, filled with camaraderie and purpose, but it also exposed him to the brutal realities of war. Deployed to combat zones overseas, he experienced the harshness of life and death, the sounds of gunfire, and the sight of fellow soldiers falling under enemy fire. He returned home a decorated hero, proud of his service but haunted by the echoes of those traumatic experiences. Nightmares plagued him, vivid recollections of the battlefield replaying in his mind as he lay awake in the dark, drenched in sweat. Marcus sought solace in work, pouring himself into his startup, driven to prove that he could succeed against all odds. However, the closer he got to his goals, the more he felt the pull of his past. The accolades and financial success were hollow comforts, and the guilt of having survived while others did not weigh heavily on his shoulders. Despite his professional success, Marcus often felt isolated. He had distanced himself from his friends, choosing instead to focus on work and the pressures that came with it. He wanted to be the strong, unwavering pillar for his mother, who had sacrificed so much for him. But he also felt a growing chasm between his current life and the one he had left behind. His childhood friends were starting families, while he was buried in board meetings and tech conferences. The disconnect gnawed at him, leaving him with a sense of longing for the community he had once been a part of. Clara, now in her 60s, sensed her son's turmoil. She was proud of his achievements, but worried about the toll it was taking on his spirit. "You can't carry the weight of the world alone, Marcus," she often reminded him, her gentle voice a soothing balm amidst his self-imposed isolation. Yet he found it difficult to share his struggles, fearing that it would burden her further. Their conversations often revolved around mundane topics: weather, local news, her plans for the garden. But there was an unspoken understanding that something deeper was festering beneath the surface. Clara's eyes, once filled with vibrant hope, now occasionally flickered with concern as she watched her son spiral deeper into solitude. The turning point came when Clara fell ill. A minor stroke left her temporarily incapacitated, and Marcus rushed home to care for her. The experience was both terrifying and illuminating. It forced him to confront his feelings of inadequacy and his yearning to reconnect with the community he had distanced himself from. Sitting by her bedside, he reminisced about their past, recalling how she had always spoken about the importance of giving back. "Marcus," she said, her voice weak but resolute, "you have the means to help others. Don't forget where you came from." Her words struck a chord deep within him. In those moments, surrounded by the scent of antiseptic and the soft hum of the hospital machinery, Marcus realized he could no longer ignore his desire to make a difference. He dreamed of creating programs that would uplift underprivileged youth, mentoring them in tech and entrepreneurship, the very path he had traveled. The thought was exhilarating, but it also filled him with dread. What if he failed? What if he wasn't enough? As he juggled caring for his mother and running his company, Marcus found himself spiraling into a deeper sense of isolation. Guilt clung to him like a shadow, whispering that he wasn't doing enough. He had amassed wealth and success, yet the voices of the community he had once known echoed louder in his mind, reminding him of his estrangement. The guilt became a catalyst, driving him to seek redemption in the most unexpected ways. He began volunteering at local shelters, sharing his story and insights with those eager to learn. With each workshop, he felt a glimmer of hope ignite within him, a reminder of the joy that came from helping others. But it wasn't enough. He needed to do more, to make a lasting impact. Marcus's journey had shifted. No longer was he simply a soldier turned entrepreneur. He was a man grappling with his identity, seeking redemption for the scars of his past. As he pored over plans for community outreach programs, the images of the Green Lantern began to swirl in his mind. What if he could revive the spirit of that social club, transforming it into a hub of creativity and opportunity for young people? His vision began to crystallize, a community center that honored the legacy of the Green Lantern, a place where stories could be shared and talents nurtured. It would be a space for art, technology, and culture, a beacon of hope for those who felt lost. But as excitement bubbled within him, doubt lurked just beneath the surface. Could he really pull it off? Would the community embrace his efforts, or would they see him as an outsider? Marcus knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, and the specter of his past could easily resurface to hinder his progress. But as he sat at his mother's bedside, he also recognized that this was not just about him. It was about honoring Clara's sacrifices and reconnecting with his roots. With renewed purpose, he leaned closer to Clara, holding her hand gently. "I'm going to do it, Mom. I'm going to bring back something like the Green Lantern." Her eyes sparkled with pride, a smile breaking through the lines of worry etched on her face. "You have always had a light in you, Marcus. It's time to let it shine." As he left the hospital that day, Marcus felt a renewed sense of determination. He would face the ghosts of his past, unravel the stories of the Green Lantern, and find his place in a community that needed him as much as he needed it. The journey would not be easy, but he was ready to embrace the challenges ahead. The weight of his past, the burdens of guilt and isolation, began to lift slightly, replaced by a flicker of hope. It was a small step toward healing, not just for himself, but for the community he longed to reconnect with. Marcus was ready to turn the page on his story, not just as a successful entrepreneur, but as a catalyst for change, a bridge between the past and a brighter future. As he walked through the bustling streets, his heart swelled with the possibilities that lay ahead, each heartbeat a reminder that redemption was within reach. The Green Lantern's legacy awaited him, and he was determined to uncover the stories hidden within its walls, to honor those who had come before him and create a place for the next generation to thrive. In the months that followed, the echo of Clara's encouragement rang in his ears, driving him forward as he set out on this new journey, ready to reclaim his connection to the community he had once loved, and to forge a path toward a legacy that would inspire others. Little did he know, the challenges he would face would not only test his resolve but also lead him to discover the true meaning of resilience and redemption. The afternoon sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the city. Marcus strolled through his neighborhood, the familiar sounds of laughter and chatter mingling with the faint aroma of fried plantains wafting from a nearby food truck. The air buzzed with life, but his mind was elsewhere, consumed by thoughts of the future he wanted to build for his community. Today, he had resolved to visit the old apartment complex he had passed on his morning walk, the place that had captured his imagination after hearing the two elderly residents talk about its history. As he approached the complex, the neglected facade loomed before him, a relic of a time long gone. The once bright paint had faded, and the windows were adorned with layers of grime, yet the building still held a certain charm. He could almost hear the echoes of laughter and music that had once spilled from its walls. The crumbling bricks whispered stories of days filled with hope and connection, and a strange compulsion urged him to explore further. He stepped through the cracked iron gate, the rusted hinges groaning in protest. The courtyard was a chaotic blend of weeds and scattered debris, remnants of a vibrant past overshadowed by neglect. In the center stood an ancient oak tree, its gnarled branches stretching out like arms longing for an embrace. Marcus paused for a moment, allowing the setting to envelop him, as if the building itself was breathing, exhaling secrets from its history. Suddenly, his attention was drawn to a woman seated on a bench beneath the tree, her silhouette framed against the waning light. She was older, perhaps in her 60s, with a head full of silver curls that danced in the breeze. Her vibrant clothing, a deep purple dress that fell gracefully to her ankles, contrasted sharply with the dull surroundings, radiating a warmth that drew him in. Her hands were busy with a stack of papers, the edges worn and dog-eared, and he could see her lips moving as she spoke softly to herself. "Excuse me," Marcus called out, his voice breaking the stillness. "I couldn't help but notice you sitting here. Do you come here often?" The woman looked up, her eyes sparkling with a mix of surprise and delight. "Ah, a curious soul," she exclaimed, her voice rich and melodic, tinged with the excitement of someone who had much to share. "I'm Ella. This place has stories, you know. It holds the past in its walls." "Marcus," he replied, extending his hand. "I've been drawn to this building. I heard about its history and wanted to learn more." Ella grasped his hand firmly, her grip surprisingly strong for her age. "You've come to the right place. This building was once the heart of our community, the Green Lantern. It was more than just a club. It was a sanctuary for many, especially for our veterans returning home after the war." Her words painted a picture in Marcus's mind, one of laughter, camaraderie, and resilience. "What do you mean by sanctuary?" he asked, leaning closer, eager for more. She gestured for him to sit beside her, and as he settled onto the weathered bench, Ella's gaze drifted toward the building. After the war, many black soldiers faced discrimination and isolation. The Green Lantern offered a space where they could gather, share their experiences, and find solace in each other's company. It was a place of healing, a community hub where friendships were forged over cards and conversations. Marcus listened intently, captivated by the passion in her voice. The significance of the club began to sink in, and a sense of nostalgia washed over him, as if he were glimpsing a life he had never known but felt oddly connected to. "I can't believe I've never heard of it before," he admitted, frustration creeping into his tone. How could something so important fade from memory? Ella's expression softened with empathy. History has a way of being overlooked, especially the stories of marginalized communities. We often let go of our past without realizing its importance. But that's why I'm here, to remind people, to preserve these stories before they vanish entirely. Intrigued, Marcus leaned in closer, the air between them electric with anticipation. What happened to the Green Lantern? A shadow passed over Ella's face, her eyes narrowing as she considered his question. Time, I suppose. It wasn't maintained, and eventually, people moved on. It fell into disrepair, and many of the memories faded along with it. But the spirit of it still lingers. Some of us are trying to bring it back to life in a way. Revive the spirit of community. Marcus felt a stirring in his chest, a mixture of hope and resolve. What if I wanted to help, he asked, the words tumbling out before he could think. I've been looking for a way to give back to the community, to create something meaningful. Ella's eyes widened, her face lighting up with enthusiasm. That would be wonderful. We need more people like you, those who are willing to invest in their community and its history. We could start by hosting events, bringing people together to share their stories. But first, you should see this. She rummaged through her stack of papers, her fingers deftly flipping through the pages until she pulled out an old, weathered photograph. The edges were frayed, and the image had faded slightly, but it was still recognizable. Here, she said, handing it to Marcus. He took the photo, the weight of it grounding him as he focused on the image. It depicted a lively gathering outside the Green Lantern, a group of men and women standing shoulder to shoulder, laughter radiating from their faces. The building loomed behind them, its sign, though worn, still visible, proclaiming its name proudly. Marcus's breath hitched in his throat. There among the familiar faces stood a man who bore an uncanny resemblance to him. Same strong jawline, the same gentle smile. Who is this? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Ah, that's Joseph Wright, Ella replied, her eyes twinkling with recognition. He was a local hero, a leader in the community and one of the founding members of the Green Lantern, a respected figure among the veterans. Marcus's heart raced, a flurry of emotions swirling within him. Right. He's related to me, isn't he? The realization sent shivers down his spine, and a sudden connection to a history he had never known pulled at his heartstrings. Ella nodded, her expression serious yet encouraging. He was your grandfather. I can see the resemblance. The revelation left Marcus momentarily speechless, the implications washing over him like a tidal wave. His grandfather, a figure he had only heard faint whispers about during family gatherings, had been a pillar in the community, yet his own connection to this history had been shrouded in mystery until now. I never knew, he managed to say, the weight of his ancestry settling in like a heavy cloak. Ella leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. You know, many people in this neighborhood have stories about him. He had a vision for our community, much like what you're striving for now. Perhaps it's time to bring that vision back to life. The wheels in Marcus's mind began to turn, fueled by the possibility of uncovering his grandfather's legacy. He felt an urgency to explore this newfound connection, to dive into the history that had been hidden from him for so long. What do I need to do? He asked, determination lacing his words. First, we should gather stories from the old veterans who frequented the Green Lantern. They hold pieces of the past that could breathe life into your vision, Ella suggested, her excitement infectious. And we can also organize a community meeting right here. Bring people together and reignite the spirit of the club. Marcus felt a spark of inspiration ignite within him. I'd like that. I want to honor my grandfather's legacy and the community he cared so deeply for. Ella's eyes shone with approval. Then let's start with some outreach. I have contacts who can help us gather stories and organize events. We can make this place vibrant again, I know it. As they sat beneath the sprawling oak tree, the world around them faded into the background, the fading light painting the courtyard in hues of amber and gold. Together, they began to sketch out plans, Ella recounting the anecdotes and memories shared by the old veterans, each story weaving a rich tapestry of the community's history. Marcus hung on every word, feeling the sense of connection not just to his grandfather, but to a legacy he had yet to fully understand. Each tale Ella recounted was a thread that pulled him closer to the heart of his ancestry, to a lineage of resilience and strength. But just as the air felt electric with possibility, a shadow flitted across Marcus's mind, a sense of urgency. What if others knew about this place? What if the stories Ella shared were threatened by time, by those who would overlook their significance? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. I want to do this, Ella, he said, resolve filling his voice. I'll make sure this community remembers the Green Lantern and its legacy. I can't let it fade away again." Ella beamed, a sense of pride radiating from her. "Then you are already on your way, Marcus. But remember, every story has its challenges. We'll need to be prepared for what lies ahead. Not everyone will understand the importance of our past." As they talked, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that danced across the courtyard, mirroring the layers of history waiting to. The morning sun spilled through Marcus's window, casting bright rays across his bedroom, and igniting the spark of inspiration ignited by his encounter with Ella. He couldn't shake the feeling that his grandfather's legacy was waiting to be uncovered, and it fueled his determination to dive deeper into the mystery of the Green Lantern and the apartment complex that housed it. After all, if he was to breathe life back into this forgotten sanctuary, he needed to understand its history fully. He spent the next few days buried in research, his dining table transformed into a makeshift command center, cluttered with newspaper clippings, old photographs, and stacks of books. Each piece he unearthed painted a broader picture of the vibrant community that had once thrived around the Green Lantern. He began his journey with a search for the local archives, where he hoped to find documents that would shed light on the club's significance. The first stop was the public library, a grand structure adorned with ivy and red bricks, standing proud amidst the surrounding modern developments. As Marcus pushed open the heavy oak doors, he was greeted by the comforting scent of aged paper and polished wood. He made his way to the local history section, where shelves overflowed with volumes detailing the city's past. "Can I help you find something?" A librarian, a middle-aged woman with thick glasses perched on her nose, approached him with a warm smile. "I'm looking for anything related to the Green Lantern or black veterans in the area," he replied, enthusiasm bubbling in his voice. "Especially anything from the mid-20th century." "Ah, that's quite a niche subject, but I think I can help," she said, her eyes lighting up with the challenge. "Let me see what we have." After a few moments of rifling through the shelves, she produced a dusty box filled with old newspaper clippings. These were collected from various publications during that time. "You might find something interesting here." "Thank you," Marcus said, his heart racing with anticipation. He took the box to a nearby table and began sifting through the brittle papers. As he read, stories began to unfold before his eyes, tales of resilience, community events, and the struggles that shaped the lives of black veterans after the war. One article caught his eye, its headline bold and attention-grabbing: "The Green Lantern, a beacon of hope for local veterans." The article detailed how the club had served as a refuge for veterans, providing them with camaraderie and support in a society that often turned a blind eye to their sacrifices. The words resonated with Marcus, amplifying his connection to his grandfather's legacy. He found another article detailing a community fundraiser that had been held to repair the building, with local businesses pitching in to support their veterans. There were mentions of a hidden library established by the veterans, dedicated to educating the youth in the area. This small, interconnected story piqued Marcus's curiosity even further. What had happened to the library? Why hadn't he heard of it before? "Wow, this is incredible," he murmured to himself, engrossed in the details. They were doing such amazing work. The articles illuminated a sense of pride and purpose, a narrative that had been buried beneath layers of neglect and time. After hours of research, he decided to take a break. As he stepped outside the library, the air was brisk and invigorating. The sun hung low, casting long shadows across the pavement, and Marcus felt a surge of determination. He needed to find the hidden library and discover its fate. Back home, he delved deeper into his search. He recalled Ella mentioning old community meetings held at the Green Lantern and decided to check city council minutes for mentions of the club. Armed with his laptop, he scoured online databases, looking for anything that might provide more context. As he searched, he stumbled upon a digitized archive of old city council records. Flipping through pages filled with formal discussions, he found a reference to a community meeting that had taken place over 20 years ago, focused on the future of the apartment complex and the Green Lantern. Curiously, the notes indicated that the meeting had been contentious, with residents voicing concerns over the neglect of the building and the loss of its historical significance. But the most intriguing detail was a reference to a veteran's archive located somewhere within the complex. Veterans Archive? Marcus whispered to himself, excitement tinged with apprehension. This could be a significant clue, a potential treasure trove of memories waiting to be rediscovered. He knew he had to investigate further. With each small discovery, his curiosity deepened. He began mapping out a plan to visit the apartment complex again, determined to search for this archive. He imagined old letters, photographs, and perhaps even remnants of the library that had once educated countless children in the community. The following day, armed with a flashlight, a notebook, and a sense of purpose, Marcus made his way back to the complex. The weathered sign above the entrance creaked as he pushed the gate open, its rusted hinges echoing his resolve. The courtyard, though still overgrown and littered with debris, felt more alive to him now. Each step resonated with the whispers of history, urging him to uncover its secrets. He approached the entrance, a sense of urgency in his stride. The heavy door resisted at first, but he pushed it open, and the dim light spilled into the lobby, illuminating layers of dust that hung in the air like memories frozen in time. As he stepped inside, the musty scent enveloped him, a bittersweet reminder of what had been lost. Okay, where do I start? He mused aloud, his voice reverberating off the cracked walls. He scanned the room, taking in the faded wallpaper and scattered remnants of furniture that spoke of better days. To his right, a staircase spiraled upward, its banister warped but still standing. With a flick of his flashlight, he cast light onto the ground floor, revealing a small door partially hidden behind a broken filing cabinet. His heart raced as he approached, curiosity surging. Was this the entrance to the archive? He nudged the door open, and it creaked ominously. Inside was a small room, the walls lined with shelves. Dust motes floated in the air as he stepped further in, and his breath caught in his throat. The shelves were filled with boxes, some labeled, others faded beyond recognition. Please let there be something valuable here, he whispered, kneeling to examine the nearest box. As he pried it open, the smell of old paper hit him, and he couldn't help but grin. Inside lay a collection of faded photographs, letters, and pamphlets from events held at the Green Lantern. He carefully pulled out a stack of photographs, revealing images of smiling families, children playing games, and veterans sharing stories. One photo showed a large gathering, the sign for the Green Lantern prominently displayed in the background. His fingers trembled as he flipped through the images, each one a portal to a time he wished he could experience. Wow, he breathed, feeling the weight of history in his hands. This was what he had been searching for, a tangible connection to the past. As he continued rummaging through the boxes, he came across a dusty ledger, its cover cracked and fragile. He opened it gently, revealing rows of names and signatures from community members who had participated in various events. His pulse quickened as he scanned the pages, searching for familiar names. Then there it was, Joseph Wright. His grandfather's name written in elegant cursive, a reminder of the legacy he had only just begun to comprehend. The realization sent a rush of emotions flooding through him, a mixture of pride and sorrow. Grandpa was here, a part of this, he whispered to himself, his voice barely above a breath. He helped build this community. The ledger contained details about fundraisers, meetings, and initiatives designed to uplift the community, each entry a testament to the commitment and resilience of the veterans. The more he uncovered, the more he felt an undeniable urge to honor that legacy. As he sifted through another box, he uncovered an old newspaper article, its headline bold and striking. Local veterans established library to educate youth. The article detailed the founding of the library within the Green Lantern, outlining its purpose to provide resources and support for children in the neighborhood. It was a project spearheaded by his grandfather and a group of veterans who believed in the power of education. Wow, Marcus breathed, his mind racing. They really cared about the future. His fingers traced the lines of the article, a newfound respect blooming within him for the men and women who had fought for their country and then continued to fight for their community. He could feel their determination resonating through the words, and it ignited a fire within him, a desire to continue their work. But as he delved deeper, he stumbled upon a troubling article. It spoke of the struggles faced by the community as funding for the library was cut, and local organizations began to withdraw support. The words painted a grim picture of neglect and disillusionment, detailing how the library had gradually fallen into disrepair, much like the Green Lantern itself. "This is heartbreaking," Marcus muttered, his heart heavy. The challenges his grandfather and the other veterans faced were eerily similar to those his community continued to encounter today. As he continued to explore the small room, he discovered a faded map tucked away at the back of one of the boxes. It was an old blueprint of the Green Lantern, marked with annotations and notes in the margins. His excitement bubbled to the surface as he traced the lines with his finger, spotting a section labeled Archives that seemed to indicate a hidden area within the building. The sun dipped low in the sky as Marcus continued his exploration of the archives hidden within the remnants of the Green Lantern. Each discovery deepened his resolve, but it also intensified the obstacles he faced. The more he learned about his grandfather's legacy and the vibrant community that once thrived there, the more daunting the task ahead seemed. Marcus had been diligently compiling stories and artifacts, sharing them with Ella, who had become his confidant and mentor. However, not everyone shared their enthusiasm for reviving the Green Lantern. Word spread quickly about Marcus's efforts to gather support for the community's history and to halt the plans for the complex's demolition, which had recently gained traction among local developers. One chilly afternoon, Marcus received an anonymous tip about a meeting set to take place that evening at the city council office, where a powerful developer named Victor Chase was planning to present his proposal for a luxury condominium project to replace the old apartment complex. The news churned in Marcus's stomach. This was a pivotal moment. He needed to attend and voice his concerns about the importance of preserving the building's history. As he walked to the council office, doubt crept into his mind. What could he possibly say that would make a difference? Would anyone even listen to a young man who had only just begun to scratch the surface of his community's history? The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on his shoulders, but the thought of his grandfather's name fading into obscurity pushed him forward. The council chamber was buzzing with activity when he arrived. Marcus stepped inside, the air thick with anticipation. Rows of chairs filled with residents and officials waited for the meeting to commence. He spotted Ella sitting in the front row, her expression resolute as she scanned the crowd. "Marcus," she called, waving him over. "You made it. We need every voice we can get." "I don't know Ella," he replied, glancing around at the suits and ties of the developers who surrounded the room. "What difference can I really make here?" "Every voice counts, especially yours," she insisted, her eyes locking onto his. "You have a personal connection to this place. Share your story." Taking a deep breath, Marcus nodded, bolstered by her encouragement. As the meeting began, he listened intently, absorbing the discussion as the developer outlined his vision. A sleek, modern building with luxury apartments, promising to revitalize the neighborhood and attract wealthy residents. The air crackled with excitement from those who saw the potential for profit, but a gnawing sense of foreboding settled in Marcus's gut. He watched as Victor Chase presented a series of glossy renderings, showcasing the new complex that would replace the old apartment building. "This project will bring jobs, increase property values, and enhance the community," Chase proclaimed, his voice booming with confidence. "The current structure is an eyesore, and it's time we move forward." Several members of the council nodded in agreement, and Marcus felt his heart sink. Were they really willing to overlook the history that lived within those walls for the sake of profit? As the meeting progressed, a few residents voiced their concerns about the displacement of current tenants and the loss of the community's heritage. Their words were met with polite nods, but Chase brushed aside their objections with practiced ease. "Change is always difficult, but we must think of the future. This area deserves an upgrade." Finally, it was time for public comments, and Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "Ella, I think I have to say something," he said, steeling himself against the tide of uncertainty. "You can do this," she whispered, squeezing his shoulder. When he stepped up to the microphone, the room seemed to shrink around him. The eyes of the council and the audience turned towards him, and he felt suddenly small and vulnerable. "My name is Marcus Wright," he began, the name echoing in the silence. "I'm here because I've recently uncovered the history of the Green Lantern, a community hub that has served our veterans for decades. My grandfather was one of its founders." A ripple of murmurs surged through the audience, and for a moment he felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps his connection would resonate with them. This place was more than just a building. It was a sanctuary for those who fought for our country, a space that fostered education and community. If we allow it to be torn down, we are not just losing bricks and mortar. We are losing a part of our identity. His voice wavered, but he pressed on, fueled by the spirit of the veterans whose stories he had been uncovering. There are stories that need to be told, histories that have shaped who we are as a community. The veterans of this neighborhood built something incredible, and I believe we can work together to revive that spirit. He noticed Chase's expression harden, annoyance flickering in his eyes. "Thank you for your input," the developer interrupted, his tone condescending. "But this is about progress. We can't cling to the past forever." As the council members deliberated, Marcus felt a knot form in his stomach. Chase's dismissive attitude only deepened his doubts. Did anyone care about the community's legacy? Would they really prioritize a shiny new building over the lives that had once flourished within the Green Lantern? After the meeting adjourned, Marcus felt hollow. Ella approached him, concern etched on her face. "You did well, Marcus. You made them listen." "Did I?" he replied, frustration creeping into his voice. "I don't think they cared at all. Chase has them wrapped around his finger. What am I even doing here?" "Fighting for what matters," Ella reminded him gently. "But it won't be easy. We need to rally support from the community. We can't let them bulldoze our history." Marcus nodded, determination flaring momentarily within him. But as the days turned into weeks, setbacks continued to mount. The developer's proposal received overwhelming support, and the local council seemed bent on pushing the project forward. Marcus's small victories felt overshadowed by the looming threat of demolition, and doubts seeped into his thoughts. He spent late nights in his small apartment, poring over research and trying to piece together a plan. Each article and story only seemed to reinforce his growing anxiety. Could he really make a difference? Would anyone rally behind him? His resolve wavered, and despair threatened to swallow him whole. One evening, as he sat alone in his dimly lit living room, he received a phone call from Ella. "Marcus, I found something that might interest you. It's a diary, a personal account from your great-grandfather, the one who helped establish the Green Lantern." His heart skipped a beat. "A diary? What does it say?" "I'm still going through it, but it's filled with thoughts about the club, the community, and the challenges he faced. I think it could really inspire you," she said, her voice crackling with excitement. "Where did you find it?" he asked, leaning forward, suddenly revitalized. "In the archives, tucked away in a box. I'll bring it over tomorrow. I think you need to read it." The following day, Marcus could hardly contain his anticipation as he awaited Ella's arrival. When she knocked on his door, she held the small, leather-bound diary with care, as if it were a sacred object. "Here it is," she said, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "I believe it holds the key to your family's connection to the Green Lantern, and maybe even your fight to preserve it." Marcus took the diary from her hands, feeling the weight of his ancestry in his palm. He flipped it open, the pages yellowed with age, the ink faded but legible. As he began to read, he felt as if he were stepping into his great-grandfather's shoes, walking alongside him through the struggles and triumphs that had shaped the foundation of the club. The first entries spoke of hope and excitement as the veterans banded together to create the Green Lantern. His great-grandfather described the camaraderie they felt, the laughter that filled the air during their meetings, and the vision they shared for a community that would uplift future generations. But as the diary progressed, the tone shifted. Marcus could sense the mounting pressure they faced, the struggles against systemic racism, the challenges of securing funding, and the heartache of watching the community's needs go ignored. The words resonated deeply, igniting a fire within Marcus. His great-grandfather's resilience mirrored the spirit of the very people Marcus wanted to help, and he felt an urgent need to honor that legacy. And then he stumbled upon a chilling entry that sent a shiver down his spine. "If we do not fight for this place, we risk losing everything we've built. There are those who wish to see us fail, who believe our contributions to this community are worth less than the land we stand on. Marcus's heart raced. The weight of those words settled heavily upon him, intertwining with his own fears and doubts. If his great-grandfather had fought for the community, how could he stand idly by now? "Ella, this is incredible," he exclaimed, the spark of determination igniting once more. He knew they were up against powerful forces, and yet he persevered. "I have to do the same." "I knew you feel inspired," she replied, her voice filled with pride. "We can't let the history of the Green Lantern vanish. We need to take action, gather support, organize a meeting, and share your great-grandfather's story." Yes, Marcus felt a surge of energy. We can create a rallying point for the community. If we share these stories, maybe we can reignite the spirit that once thrived here. With renewed determination, the room felt electric as Marcus sat cross-legged on the floor of the dimly lit alcove, surrounded by piles of boxes that smelled of dust and history. He had spent countless hours sifting through the remnants of the Green Lantern, guided by Ella's unwavering belief in the stories hidden within. Each item he uncovered was a piece of a larger puzzle, yet he still felt something significant was eluding him. Today, however, was different. Ella had promised him a discovery that would change everything, and he could sense that the air itself was charged with anticipation. As she meticulously rifled through the stacks of papers, Marcus's heart raced. He could hear the faint rustle of parchment, the whisper of secrets waiting to be revealed. "Here," Ella exclaimed, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. She held up a yellowed envelope, its edges frayed and stained with time. "This is what I've been looking for, the original charter of the Green Lantern." Marcus leaned in, breathless with excitement as she carefully opened the envelope, revealing a scroll of aged parchment. The document was adorned with elegant script, and the intricate designs around the borders hinted at the pride and significance it held. With trembling fingers, Ella unfurled the charter, and Marcus's eyes widened as he took in the bold title, "The Green Lantern, a Charter for Community and Progress." As she began to read aloud, his heart raced with each word. The Green Lantern was established to foster unity among Black veterans and their families. Our mission is to provide a safe space for education, empowerment, and cultural enrichment, ensuring that the contributions of our community are recognized and celebrated. The words resonated deeply within Marcus, igniting the spark of recognition. This was more than just a document. It was a manifesto of hope and resilience, a testament to the struggles and triumphs of those who had come before him. As Ella continued, Marcus's mind raced with questions. He was struck by the vision of a community center that was outlined in the charter, a place that was meant to serve as a hub for learning, support, and gathering. It was a dream that had never materialized, lost to time, and the neglect of a society that had consistently overlooked the contributions of Black veterans. The charter also highlights the various contributions made by the veterans in the community. Ella continued, her voice steady but filled with emotion. It outlines plans for educational programs, mentorship initiatives, and cultural events, all aimed at uplifting the youth and preserving our heritage. Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. This wasn't just about a building or a community center. It was about a legacy. The realization hit him like a tidal wave. His family's story was intertwined with the dreams of countless others who had fought for their place in history and who had yearned for a space that would honor their sacrifices. "Look here." Ella pointed to a section of the document that detailed contributions from various veterans, including a list of names. These were the pillars of the community, men and women who dedicated their lives to this mission. And look at this name. She pointed to a name that sent a jolt through Marcus's system, his great-grandfather, Samuel Wright. The connection hit him with profound force, the weight of his heritage settling in the depths of his heart. Samuel Wright had not just been a name in his family history. He had been a cornerstone of a movement, a guardian of a dream that had been trampled by time. I never understood the extent of what he was fighting for," Marcus murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. The emotions surged within him, a torrent of pride and sorrow. His great-grandfather had poured his heart into this vision, and now it lay in ruins. The charter continued to unfold stories of struggle, camaraderie, and hope, a rich tapestry of history that painted a picture of a vibrant community spirit. Each name, each story, and each dream resonated with the echoes of laughter and the weight of tears that had once filled the Green Lantern. Marcus, Ella's voice brought him back to the present. This charter is a vital piece of your family's legacy. It's not just about the past. It's about what you can do with this knowledge now. You have a chance to honor their memory, to bring their dreams to life. As he sat in that small alcove, surrounded by the ghosts of his ancestors, something inside Marcus shifted. The fears and insecurities that had plagued him began to dissolve, replaced by a fierce determination. He felt the presence of his great-grandfather, the weight of his hopes and dreams resting heavily upon his shoulders. "I can't let this die," he said, his voice growing stronger with conviction. "I have to fight for this community. I have to honor their legacy." Ella smiled, her eyes glistening with understanding. "Yes, Marcus, you are not just fighting for a building. You are fighting for the spirit of the community, for the voices that have been silenced for too long. This charter, it's a roadmap. We can use it to rally support, to educate others, and to remind them of what was once here." With renewed vigor, Marcus took a deep breath, the air filling his lungs with purpose. The emotional weight of his family's legacy transformed into a clarion call, echoing through his mind and heart. He had a mission, a chance to reclaim not just a piece of history, but the very soul of his community. As he looked around the cramped alcove, the shadows of the past seemed to swirl around him, whispering stories of resilience and courage. Each faded photograph, each brittle newspaper clipping, was a reminder of the sacrifices made by those who came before him. Their dreams had not been in vain. They had forged a path for him to follow. "Let's get to work," he said, a sense of urgency propelling him forward. "We need to organize a meeting. We need to share this charter with the community, to inspire them to join us in this fight." Ella nodded, her excitement palpable. "I have some contacts who can help us spread the word. We'll need to gather support from the residents, the veterans organizations, and anyone who cares about preserving our history." The two of them began to plan, their energy infectious as they brainstormed ways to bring the community together. Marcus felt a sense of purpose he had never known before, as if the spirits of his ancestors were guiding him, urging him to take action. Days turned into nights as they worked tirelessly, crafting flyers, reaching out to local organizations, and spreading the word about the upcoming meeting. Marcus felt alive with possibility, each interaction fueling his passion for the cause. Finally, the day of the community meeting arrived. Marcus stood at the front of the small, familiar hall where the Green Lantern had once thrived, flanked by Ella and a few supportive community members. The room was filled with a mixture of excitement and apprehension, residents milling about, exchanging glances that reflected their uncertainty. As the meeting began, Marcus felt the weight of the moment settle upon him. He took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of his great-grandfather's spirit surrounding him, lending him strength. He could do this. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I know this is a difficult time for our community, especially with the plans for the redevelopment of the Green Lantern. But I believe we have a chance to honor our past and fight for our future." As he spoke, he shared the stories from the charter, the dreams that had been woven into its fabric, and the rich history that had shaped their community. He watched as faces lit up with recognition, the flicker of hope igniting in their eyes. "I found this charter," he said, holding up the document with pride. "It's a testament to the resilience of our ancestors, to the dreams they had for our community. If we stand together, we can ensure that their legacy lives on." The atmosphere in the room shifted, a palpable energy building as residents began to share their own stories, their own connections to the Green Lantern. Marcus felt a swell of emotion as he listened to the voices that had been silent for too long, each story a thread weaving them closer together. By the end of the meeting, a sense of unity hung in the air, the resolve of the community coalescing into a powerful force. They were no longer just individuals. They were a collective, united in their determination to reclaim their history and honor the sacrifices of those who had come before them. As the night drew to a close, Marcus looked around the room, his heart swelling with pride. The journey had been fraught with obstacles and doubts, but in this moment, he felt the weight of his family's legacy transform into a beacon of hope. He was no longer just a bystander. He was a custodian of history, a warrior for the dreams of his ancestors. And as he stood there, surrounded by a community that believed in the power of their past, Marcus knew that he was ready to fight for the future. The Green Lantern would not fade away. It would rise again, fueled by the love and resilience of those who had come before him. The sun rose over the mid-sized city, casting a warm glow across the now vibrant neighborhood that had once been shrouded in neglect. The air was filled with the sounds of laughter and music, echoing from the newly established community center, the Green Lantern reclaimed. Marcus stood at the entrance, his heart swelling with pride as he watched families gather, children playing, and the spirit of togetherness filling the space. The campaign to preserve the apartment complex had been long and arduous, but the resolve of the community had proven stronger than any opposition. Marcus, fueled by the stories and dreams of those who had come before him, had rallied support from local organizations, veterans groups, and residents alike. Together, they had fought against the powerful developer, securing the funds needed to transform the complex into a community center that honored its rich history. As Marcus stepped inside, the sight that greeted him took his breath away. The once neglected walls now showcased a vibrant mural, depicting scenes from the past, Black veterans celebrating their service, families gathering for meetings, and the founding members of the Green Lantern coming together in unity. Each brushstroke told a story, capturing the essence of resilience that had been woven into the fabric of the community. Ella approached him, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Look at what we've created, Marcus. This is just the beginning." "Absolutely," Marcus replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't believe how far we've come. This place is a testament to everything we fought for." They wandered through the center, where rooms had been repurposed to serve various needs. A library filled with books written by and about Black authors, a tutoring space for local students, and a gathering area for community meetings. The spirit of the Green Lantern had not only been preserved, it had been reborn, flourishing under the weight of its legacy. As they moved through the center, Marcus felt a tug on his sleeve. He turned to see a young girl, no older than 8, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Mr. Wright, can you tell me about the Green Lantern?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Of course," he replied, kneeling to meet her gaze. The Green Lantern was a place where people came together, just like we are now. It was about supporting each other and lifting each other up. It was created by brave men and women who wanted to make a difference in their community. "Did you help make this place?" she asked, her innocence shining through. "I did," Marcus said, his heart swelling with pride. "But it was all of us working together that made it happen. We honored the dreams of those who came before us, and now we get to create new dreams together." Her face lit up with excitement, and Marcus felt a warmth spread through him. It was moments like this that reaffirmed his commitment to the community. This was the legacy he wanted to leave behind, a place where future generations could gather, learn, and grow. As the celebration continued, Marcus's mother, Clara, arrived, her presence illuminating the room. The lines on her face told stories of struggle and perseverance, and as she approached, Marcus felt a rush of emotion. She had been a source of strength throughout this journey, and he had grown to appreciate her sacrifices in ways he had never acknowledged before. "Marcus," Clara said, her voice filled with pride, "I'm so proud of you. You've brought our family's history back to life." "Thank you, Mom," he replied, pulling her into a warm embrace. "I couldn't have done this without you. You taught me the importance of remembering where we came from." As they stood together, Marcus felt the weight of their shared history settle comfortably on his shoulders. He realized that his journey was not just about reclaiming a building or a legacy. It was about healing the fractures in their family, understanding the sacrifices made by previous generations, and honoring their contributions. "Let's make sure to celebrate our history together," he said, gesturing to the gathering crowd. "There are stories that need to be shared, lessons that need to be learned." Clara nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I'd love that. It's time for us to share our stories." As the celebration unfolded, Marcus took the stage, feeling a rush of energy course through him. He looked out over the crowd, seeing faces filled with joy, hope, and unity. This was what the Green Lantern was meant to be, a beacon of light in their community. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice strong and clear. "Today, we celebrate not just the opening of this community center, but the legacy of those who fought to create it. The Green Lantern represents the dreams of Black veterans and their families, the resilience of our ancestors, and the power of community." As he spoke, Marcus shared stories of the Charter, the dreams of his great-grandfather, and the importance of honoring their history. The crowd listened intently, hanging on his every word. He emphasized that the center was a place for everyone, a sanctuary where people could come together, share their stories, and build a future rooted in understanding and compassion. "We have the power to shape the future," he declared, his heart racing with passion. "Let's ensure that the lessons of the past guide us, that we learn from one another, and that we uplift each other every step of the way. Together, we can create a legacy of hope and resilience that will shine brightly for generations to come." As the crowd erupted in applause, Marcus felt a rush of gratitude and hope wash over him. He had embarked on this journey seeking redemption for himself, but in doing so, he had discovered the importance of connection, both with his community and with his own heritage. The celebration continued into the evening, filled with music, dance, and laughter. Families mingled, old friends reunited, and new friendships blossomed. The spirit of the Green Lantern was alive and thriving, its legacy renewed through the joy of togetherness. Later that night, as the festivities began to wind down, Marcus stepped outside to take a breath of fresh air. The stars twinkled brightly overhead, a reminder of the countless stories woven into the tapestry of the universe. He felt a sense of peace envelop him, knowing that he had honored the past and set the stage for a hopeful future. As he leaned against the cool wall of the community center, a familiar voice broke the silence. It was Ella, her face lit with pride. "You did it, Marcus. You brought the community together in a way I never thought possible." "Thank you for believing in this vision, Ella," he replied, a smile breaking across his face. "I couldn't have done it without your support and guidance." As they stood together, sharing the moment, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The struggles, the doubts, and the revelations had all led to this, an opportunity to create a space where history could be remembered and honored, where new stories could be written, and where the past would be cherished. In that moment, he understood the true meaning of legacy. It was not just about preserving history, it was about passing on the wisdom and strength of those who came before to those who would follow. It was about nurturing a sense of belonging, fostering resilience, and inspiring future generations to dream boldly. With renewed determination, Marcus vowed to ensure that the Green Lantern reclaimed would be a place of education, empowerment, and unity. He envisioned workshops, cultural events, and mentorship programs that would help bridge the gaps in their community, fostering understanding and compassion among all. As the last of the guests began to leave, Marcus felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had not only reclaimed a building, he had reignited the spirit of a community that had long been forgotten. The Green Lantern was not just a name, it was a movement, a commitment to honor the past while building a brighter future. In the quiet of the night, as he watched the stars above, Marcus whispered a silent promise to his great-grandfather and all those who had come before him. He would carry their legacy forward, ensuring that their dreams would never be lost again. The journey had been transformative, filled with challenges and triumphs, but Marcus had emerged stronger, more connected, and filled with purpose. He understood now that history was not merely a collection of facts. It was a living, breathing narrative that shaped identities and communities. It was a reminder of where they had come from and a guide for where they were going. As he turned to rejoin the celebration, he felt a surge of hope for what lay ahead. The Green Lantern reclaimed would stand as a beacon of resilience, a testament to the strength of community, and a powerful reminder that every story mattered. And in that moment, as laughter and music filled the air, Marcus knew that the legacy of the Green Lantern would shine brightly, illuminating the path for future generations to walk with pride, courage, and unwavering determination.